Hello student. I am Jenny. This is our second lesson, and we will discuss how the internet works. As beginners to web designing, you need to have an idea about this topic because you will create websites that will serve through the internet. Let's get started. These are our objectives for today's discussion. I'll be introducing the basic components of a web address. There are important technical terms that you need to be familiar with. Next, we will explore basics of the client-server communication. This is the simplest form of internet-based data communication that you can observe. Third, we will see a step-by-step process to understand the flow of a web request and response. Here, I mentioned a couple of technical terms, but don't worry, I'll explain everything from the beginner level. Also, I'll be providing further references. Therefore, I encourage everyone to look at and prepare your notes together with this discussion. This is an example of a web address. However, if you look at this link closer, you can observe few clearly identifiable parts. Starting from the left side, the first part marked here, we call the Internet Protocol. Next, you have the subdomain and last domain. Here, I want to emphasize that subdomains are not always present in a web address. But the domain is something definitely you can see in any address. I'll explain what is domain and subdomain first. Domain refers to a location of a website. For example, google.com refers to the location of the Google website stored. Tesla.com refers to that specific website location. Domain names end with .com, .us, .uk, .gov, and many more suffixes. Subdomains are an extension of the domain. For example, google.com can have multiple subdomains. books.google.com and ads.google.com both have the same domain. That means both websites are in the same location. However, because of the difference in subdomains, these two are two different websites. You will learn further about these domains and subdomains in coming up sessions. Next, I will explain what an Internet Protocol is. Internet Protocol is a set of rules that control data communication over the Internet. To explain this further, remember the term Internet discussed in the previous video. We identified that the Internet is built with physical devices and software together. The Internet Protocol is part of the software supporting to the function of the Internet. These Internet protocols, simply the rules, define how data should be communicated via the Internet. Let me bring you some examples. If you want to share large files on the Internet, you can use a file transfer protocol, or we call it the FTP protocol. Most websites use Hypertext Transfer Protocol, HTTP, because it is the more applicable rule set which guides sharing of text and multimedia over the Internet. If the website needs to be secured, especially if you deal with payments and sensitive data with the website, the best protocol is HTTPS. Remember, there are many more protocols than these three, so I encourage you all to read further and gather more examples. You can see one of these protocols in front of any website URL. Now, we will look into the simplest architecture of how the Internet works, or simply, what happens when you type a website address on your browser and hit enter. The front end, also known as the client side, is the part that we always see in our browser. Or simply the website's look and feel. In web development and programming, we need to design this front-end part, which is the section that we are focusing on in this video series. But remember, you will learn server-side programming also, in the coming up video series. The websites you access over the Internet are stored outside your computer but on a web server somewhere else. These servers store all the data of the website you access. So when you type a web address, there is a request going to the server, which holds the data. Then, the server processes the request and sends back the relevant data to the front end as a response. This is the basic client-server architecture on the web client side. But we need to clarify a doubt further. How does the internet know the specific server related to the website address you enter? There are millions of servers out there, but the internet delivers only the content related to your specified web address. How does it happen? First, you open your browser and type a website address, or even Google search, and click on the search result. Both are the same. Web addresses are in letters, but internet devices like routers, switches understand numbers. In networking, we call it IP addresses. Each server has its own IP address. When you send a website address, it should be translated into the relevant IP address. This operation is done by domain name servers or DNS. After resolving the IP address of a web URL, now it is straightforward to identify the relevant server which holds the website data. So a connection will be routed to that particular server. Then the content will be downloaded to the client device. Last but not least, the web browser can render the web page by combining all the downloaded data in detail. Remember, all of these steps usually happen within milliseconds, and also this is a very basic level scenario, but in the real world, this process is more complicated. As beginners to web designing, I hope this will help you to get an overall idea. I will link more resources for you to explore further, and also in upcoming web programming videos, you will learn the concept more in detail. This diagram explains the steps we discussed in the previous slide. In steps 3, 4, 5, and 6, you can see how the web URL is sent to DNS, and the relevant IP address is resolved. Also, then you can notice how the content is downloaded from the relevant server back to the client device. So today, we looked into how the internet works in detail. We got to know the structure of a web address and its parts like Internet Protocol, domain, and subdomain. We learned about the basic client-server architecture and the step-by-step process that happens when you access a website. I hope I could inspire you to read more about the internet. So, check out the description panel of this video and get reading materials and other resources and get ready for the next one. I wait to see you soon.